Hello everyone. Welcome to the Scarred Stories. I'm your scarred storyteller, here to guide you into a moment of relaxation. If you're using this video to help you drift off, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel before you let the sleep take over. I'd love to know, where are you watching from, and what time is it there? Now, it's time to get cozy, unwind, and let's begin this journey together. It was a cold, moonless evening when Lena found herself standing in front of the sprawling, decaying mansion that loomed over the outskirts of her small, forgotten town. The air was heavy, as if the world itself was holding its breath, and an unsettling silence pressed down around her. She had heard the whispers, just like everyone else in town. Stories about the place, once grand and opulent, now darkened by tragedy and neglect. No one dared to venture here, and that only fueled her curiosity. Lena pulled her hood tighter around her face, her breath coming out in small clouds in the biting air. The mansion's iron gate stood slightly ajar, rusted hinges showing scars of time and weather. Beyond them, a cobblestone path led to the front porch, fragments of broken stones littering its length like discarded memories. Towering windows stared back at her, hollow and lifeless, like empty eyes refusing to blink. Her chest tightened as she stepped forward, the crunch of gravel beneath her boots slicing through the quiet. Part of her wanted to turn back, to retreat to the safety of her mundane, unimpressive life. But the larger part of her, the part that stayed up late at night imagining far-off adventures and daring escapes from mediocrity, pushed her forward. Besides, she hated feeling afraid. She had spent too much of her young life feeling powerless, insignificant, and trapped. Tonight, she was taking the first step toward something bigger, even if it meant facing those shadows alone. The porch creaked beneath her weight as she ascended the stairs. Her fingers brushed lightly against the rotting wooden banister, splinters catching against the fabric of her gloves. Through the cracked glass of the front door, she could see darkness swallowing what little light came from the dim street lamp down the lane. The door itself, an elaborate piece of craftsmanship once adorned with etched vines and flowers, was marred by deep scratches. An irrational chill passed over Lena. They looked almost deliberate. She hesitated for a moment, then placed her hand on the ancient metal doorknob. It was cold to the touch, sending an icy jolt up her arm. With a twist and a gentle push, the door groaned open on protesting hinges. A burst of stale, musty air rushed out, as if the house were exhaling after years of being dormant. Lena wrinkled her nose but pressed forward, stepping into the vast, shadowy foyer. The entrance hall was enormous, or at least it felt that way in the eerie darkness. Faint moonlight slanted lazily through the stained, fractured windows above the door, painting faint, fractured patterns on the warped hardwood floors. A grand staircase stretched upward in the center, its banister twisted and ornate, its steps wrapped in what must have once been a vibrant red carpet, now faded to a murky brown. Dust blanketed every surface, disturbed only by cobwebs that sagged under their own weight. Lena's footsteps echoed faintly as she walked further inside. She shivered but couldn't tell if it was from the cold or the oppressive stillness pressing down on her. Every instinct screamed at her to leave, to go back to her unremarkable room in her small, creaking apartment above the bakery, where she could safely imagine daring exploits instead of living them. But something about the mansion pulled at her, an invisible thread tugging her deeper. She turned, intending to pull the door shut behind her, and froze. For just a moment, so fleeting she almost convinced herself she imagined it, she thought she saw movement, a shadow where no shadow should be, on the staircase above. Her heart skipped a beat, but when she blinked, whatever it was had vanished. Only stillness remained. "Hello," she called softly, her voice startlingly loud in the cavernous space. It echoed back to her, distorted and unfamiliar. She laughed nervously under her breath. Of course, there wouldn't be anyone here. The place had been abandoned for decades. Even the vagrants in town knew to steer clear of it. Shaking off her unease, Lena moved toward the great staircase. Each step echoed as she ascended, her pulse roaring in her ears. The deeper she ventured, the heavier the air felt, pressing against her lungs like the mansion itself was aware of her presence, watching her, judging her every move. Upstairs, the long corridors stretched out into impenetrable darkness, and the faint smell of decay grew stronger. She fumbled for her flashlight, clicking it on, its weak beam barely cutting through the oppressive gloom. She paused at the nearest room and pushed the door gently, only for it to creak open with painstaking slowness. Inside, dust mites swirled in the air, glittering faintly under the beam of her flashlight. The walls were lined with shelves, most of which were empty now, though a few books remained, their spines cracked and faded. A broken chair sat slumped in one corner, surrounded by shattered glass and the disintegrating remains of what might have once been a curtain. A sudden, faint shuffle of movement drew her attention. Her heart thundered as she swung the flashlight toward the sound, but the beam revealed nothing except the empty room. The silence that followed was deafening, yet she couldn't shake the sense that there was something, someone, just out of sight, retreating into the shadows as her light chased it away. She stepped back quickly, her breath hitching, and collided with something solid behind her. Cold terror raced down her spine as she spun around, bracing for, what? A figure? A ghost. But the hallway was empty. There was nothing there. Nothing, except for the low, almost imperceptible sound of a whisper. It was distant, impossible to make out, but unmistakably real. It seemed to rise and fall like a sigh, carried through the air by something unseen. Lena's grip on her flashlight tightened, and she forced herself to whisper back, though her voice trembled. "Hello. Who's there?" The whisper stopped. Silence swallowed the world again. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears as she pressed forward down the corridor. She didn't know what she was searching for answers, for adventure, for meaning. All she knew was this house held something she couldn't walk away from now. Something hidden. Something waiting. And it wanted her to find it.